Behold! Motus Garuda, one of the finalists in my September 2019 Framework Battle Royale build competition. This loadout uses Garuda's unique hovering mechanics while holding down her first and fourth abilities for various synergies with the rest of her loadout. Since this loadout was not created by me, I've left some disclaimers in the description, and if you have no idea what this is all about, check out the playlist down there. The namesake Motus set provides bonuses while airborne, and most notably prevents you from being knocked down while floating with your first or fourth ability. Both modes of the Corinth benefit from Motus setup, and the Ripkas have powerful ground finishers to take advantage of enemies that survive a direct cast of Garuda's first ability, as they'll be knocked down. The Amalgam mod for the Ripkas even helps out with the Corinth's reload speed. Piranha Prime rounds out the loadout with the incredible damage that can deal with armored enemies with the help of Garuda's fourth ability and its guaranteed slash procs. Garuda's built for some staple Garuda stuff, including 100% slash proc chance on Seeking Talons while Growing Power is active, natural talent to combat her many long and frequent ability animations, and quick thinking to help her survive at low health to keep her passive powered up as much as possible to get that bonus damage. Then we get to the floaty stuff, so we have Motus Signal and Aviator. Motus Signal, along with the rest of the Motus set, is making you invulnerable to knockdowns while airborne so that you won't be knocked out of the sky while hovering, and it also gives you higher jumps to get up there in the first place. And of course, Aviator gives you damage reduction while you're up there too. Enemies are less accurate while you're airborne, and you will often have a Dread Mirror shield while playing this loadout, so between that and Aviator Quick Thinking and Garuda's high base armor, you can survive reasonably well without a Blood Altar, which is good because your altars will usually be on the ground while you yourself will not be. There are quite a few arcanes that would be nice here, but neither of these are directly necessary. The creator recommended Consequence for extra initial height when you jump into the air to hover. This is also really easy to proc almost automatically using the Corinth's Air Burst. That's a very easy way to get headshots. And of course you can also get headshots using the Ripkas when you do ground finishers. If you punch the enemy in the head, that counts as a headshot. It doesn't have to be with a gun. You can also use Trickery for the occasional breather in stealth as you're doing ground finishers with the Ripkas. So speaking of the Ripkas are here for those spicy ground finishers and Amalgam Ripkas, True Steel, baby! Extra gore chance, and okay, yeah, it's mostly just the crit mod, but hey, bonus synergy with the shotgun. The Corinth does reload really often, so that is helpful. I was excited to introduce Hunter's Bonesaw to the creator. This isn't the most exciting augment, which is probably why a lot of people forgot about it, but it is an efficient use of a mod slot when you're almost always doing ground finishers. Near as I can tell, the damage is base damage, and the status chance is a percent of the weapon's base status, not a flat amount. So again, this is not anything amazing. It's basically just a dual stat mod, but it gives base damage, but like that. That's good. That's good. That's a good thing. So I do think you still want it, and you will be attacking enemies that are prone, quote unquote, ground finishers most of the time. So finishing touch makes sense. Condition overload is also still pretty reasonable. Again, you're gonna have slash, of course, from Seeking Talons, and viral is relatively likely. Remember that fist weapons and claw weapons and such do multi hits when they do a ground finisher, as you will see. So it is still pretty worthwhile. You'll also notice that this is too slow, so that's my fault for including Hunter's Bonesaw, but I thought people would want to see it. Just to give you an idea of what this loadout's speed would be like when you're doing ground finishers with Ripkas, you definitely should correct that attack speed. I don't know what you're going to take out, but just to show you what that would be like, I'm going to swap Fury for Motus Impact just because you're not going to see anything about this in testing. Just keep in mind that the loadout is fully knockdown immune in the air if you run the full Motus set. The Corinth gains slash procs from Seeking Talons in its crit mode, and slash procs from Seeking Talons for its status mode. Again, viral goes with the secondary fire pretty nicely. Remember, the secondary fire has good status, bad crit. Primary fire is the opposite way due to distributed status chance on pellet shotguns. This status looks alright, but it's actually pretty negligible, but the crit is good. So interestingly, Motus setup is kind of helping each mode halfway. So you get the critical chance to help out the buckshot, and then you get the status chance for the air burst. Due to that, you might want to consider running just flat vanilla elementals here. You will have mostly enough status from Motus setup anyway, but it's kind of up to you. You could also consider running 100 munitions for the double slash, which is probably not entirely necessary, but this would be a mod that would make the Corinth's primary fire be pretty good without using Seeking Talons, and this loadout is a little reliant on having Seeking Talons up. I mean, as you're going to see, you want to be using it all the time, but Still, you might care about that, and if you do, you could add this in. I really do think Motus setup is pretty nice. You could consider dropping Blunderbuss. I don't think I would do that, but just this is a good mod. Finally, the Piranha Prime has shown up a few times now in this series, and I'd like to show you my own build for it here. The creator recommends Slip Magazine, perhaps primed Slip Magazine, and I recommend Ice Storm, both for the same reason. They both gain you a lot of overall output when the Piranha Prime's doubling effect doubles the extra rounds in the magazine. My build is set up totally ignorant to damage types for once I'm just looking to do the highest amount of raw damage possible, since that's what this weapon is good at. Again, Garuda fixes the Piranha Prime's weakness against armor by forcing slash procs. Now, Ice Storm is sort of causing a problem in this build. If I used Prime Slip Magazine, while I would be getting less free damage, it's about the same magazine capacity and then you get 40% cold for free, I can't really use Prime Heated Charge in place of Maim, which would be slightly more overall damage, because then I'm going to switch my Elemental Blast, which doesn't have very favorable damage bonuses. Having Slash and Cold is pretty good. Slash is good against Unarmored Flesh, which is normally the only thing this weapon is useful against, and Cold is good against Shields, which is the other thing you'd be shooting if enemies don't have armor. So that's a pretty good balance, and again, if you make it Blast, you'll get more raw damage, but the damage type Blast is just not that great for this weapon. So it might be worth going Prime Slip Magazine and Prime Heated Charge. I think the damage is probably about even, and you do slightly better against shields by going for this split. That's why it's like that. Sorry, just nerdy moment about the Piranha Prime. And then Steady Hands is good quality of life, just something I like to use. I do also think Xeneric is fairly important here, but I'll talk about that in a sec. As usual with Garuda, there's some finesse to playing this loadout. You're going to want to keep moving, continue casting abilities very often, and make sure that you stay mobile, and continue using Blood Altars to sustain yourself, use Bloodletting to get energy back, and again, even on top of that, you want to stay in the air because of the way this loadout operates. As you can see, you can kind of float for a very long time by using Seeking Talons into charging a Blood Orb from Dreadmirror, and then you're going to want to get another one, then you can charge it up and float for a bit. And you're mostly defended up there, you're relatively safe. You will want to come back down and make sure you're continuing to use Blood Altar to recharge. And that's one of the things I wanted to mention with Xeneric, and I also talked about the efficiency. This is definitely a loadout where I would appreciate the ability to use Seeking Talons more times in midair before having to come back down. But there's some prices to that. I definitely understand this approach where you could just be using Bloodletting in midair and getting used to the loadout. I can imagine that the creator is probably a masterful player of this strategy, and those of us who are just being introduced to it, probably not so much. I understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. I just feel like it would be interesting to take a loadout where you constantly propel yourself into the air more and more by using Seeking Talons over and over again. You can see I can kind of like juggle myself in the air like this and continue going higher. You can basically fly as long as you have enough regeneration. So maybe even something to the effect of sustaining your health in midair so that you can constantly Bloodlet Seeking Talons, Bloodlet Seeking Talons, Bloodlet Seeking Talons, and just kind of fly using Bloodletting and Seeking Talons. Could be really, really interesting. And you could use Dreadmirror as a shield up there. You could just hold it and not throw it. So a lot of possibilities with this loadout. This is one of the ones among the entries where I want to note that the way you play this loadout affects how it works a lot. And again, I haven't even really done the ground finishers and the synergies with the weapons. So as you can see, if you prime the enemies with, I'm going to get Dreadmirror first. If you prime the enemies by using Seeking Talons, you can then do all sorts of terrible things to them, like airburst them for pretty sick damage against enemies of this level. You can fly through a cloud of numbers and white out as you are amazed by the high damage the loadout can do. And then, again, the airburst is still pretty useful normally. You can knock enemies over at least. It's just not going to kill anything by itself without Seeking Talons. And as you can see, you can do significant damage with the Ripkas. Once you lunge at an enemy, they fall over. And after the first few, you charge up and the enemies will just die. But you really do need that attack speed. I mentioned before I wanted to add some attack speed so you weren't biased against that. That's the general idea. So a very interesting loadout to play against something where I feel like I'm trying to demonstrate a bit more than I have been in the other videos for this one, because I don't think that I am a properly competent player of this loadout. It takes getting used to, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. The floating thing is really interesting, so I wanted to mention the possibility that you could build for very, very floaty Garuda, where you kind of fly perpetually. That was Motus Garuda. Thanks to the creator for submitting this and for allowing me to make a video about it.